All right, we're about to pull back the curtain on one of the most intense educational experiences you can imagine, the first semester of law school. Yeah, forget what you've seen in the movies. Today, we're going to decode what it really takes to start thinking like a lawyer.
I mean, seriously, have you ever wondered how they learn to spot issues out of thin air, construct these intricate arguments, and navigate incredibly complex rules? It's not magic, I promise. It's a very specific and, yeah, a very challenging process. That kicks off on day one.
And our guide for this little journey isn't some dusty textbook. We're looking at the real deal, actual, handwritten exam papers from first-year students. This is our roadmap. This is how we're going to understand how that legal mindset gets forged in the fire of that first semester.
So our first stop on this tour is the foundation of everything, constitutional law. You should think of this as the master instruction manual for an entire country, kind of like the ultimate source code that dictates how everything else is supposed to run.
Now, notice where this begins. The very first question isn't about some obscure little rule. It asks students to define a massive core value, democratic. Right away, that tells us that constitutional law starts with the big stuff, the fundamental principles, and the very identity of a nation.
And that's really the heart of it. Constitutional law makes you grapple with these huge questions. Who gets to be in charge? What are the absolute non-negotiable rights that people have? And how easy is it to change this foundational document? It's the framework for, well, everything.
Okay, so from the massive scale of a nation, the law now zooms all the way down into our everyday lives. Welcome to contract law, or as I like to think of it, the law of promises.
And once again, look at this. The exam cuts right to the core with a really basic question. What is a contract? From your job offer to your mobile phone plan, this area of law governs the millions and millions of agreements that structure our daily lives.
So here's the crucial point. Not every promise is a contract. A contract is a special kind of promise. It's one the legal system will actually step in to enforce. You could almost call it a legally enforced pinky swear. To create that special enforceable promise, the law looks for these key ingredients. There has to be an offer and declare acceptance. Crucially, there's this thing called consideration, which just means both sides have to get something of value. And finally, both parties have to actually intend for it to be a serious, legally binding deal. You miss just one of these steps, and an agreement that seems totally solid can completely fall apart. Okay, now we're going to pivot again. We're moving from the world of business and commerce to the most intimate parts of our lives. This is family law, and it's where legal rules intersect with our most personal relationships. You know, this comparison is pretty fascinating. It shows just how far the law reaches. On one side, you have the cold logic of a business deal. On the other, you have these deeply personal questions about marriage and inheritance. But what connects them? They are both built on formal promises that our legal system recognizes and regulates.
This question from the Hindu law paper is just wow. It's asking students to examine a statement about identity itself. This shows that family law isn't just about who gets what in a divorce. It deals with these really fundamental questions of belonging, tradition, and who we are in the eyes of the law. So we've looked at the rules for the nation, for promises, and for families. But what happens when someone breaks the rules? Well, that brings us to our final section, defining wrongs and figuring out what to do about them.
This right here is one of the biggest aha moments in that first semester. What's the real difference between a crime and a tort? Well, a crime is seen as a wrong against the entire community, against all of us. That's why the state prosecutes it. But a tort, that's a civil wrong against a specific person, where the goal isn't jail time, but getting compensation for the harm that was done.
Let's make this even clearer with a classic example that pops up in both exam papers. Assault is the threat. It's making someone believe they are about to be harmed. Battery is the follow-through, the actual harmful or offensive touching. So you have the threat and then you have the act. Two different concepts, one often leading to the other. And it's a perfect example of the kind of precision that legal thinking demands.
So after navigating constitutional theory, contract elements, family dynamics, and civil wrongs, what's the real takeaway? The goal was never just about learning a huge pile of rules.
It's such a common misconception that law school is just a giant memory test. I mean, if it were, we'd all just use Google, right? The real transformation that's happening here is so much deeper. It's really about building this mental toolkit. It's learning to dissect a problem, to question all the assumptions, to see an issue from multiple perspectives, and then to build a logical, structured argument. That's the core skill set being built, one exam question at a time.
So I'll leave you with this thought. We've seen how this incredibly complex system is taught and understood. So if you think of law as the operating system that runs our society, what's one bug, one glitch, one piece of code you think needs an update? It's a big question, I know, but after today, you've got the very beginnings of the toolkit to answer it.